Hey y'all, today I am talking about books again, which I feel like it's been a very long time since I've done that, although it probably has not been. Recently I finished 2 trilogies, so mega spoilers. You've been warned. First up, Vows of Empire. This is the last book in the Blood Traitor trilogy. Now I loved this trilogy, okay? Absolutely freaking loved it. I have other videos gushing about this trilogy. This book, still good, but I only gave it a 4. The problem here is that it falls into that trap that a lot of trilogies fall into, like the final books, not even trilogies, any final book in any series, and that things have to wrap up, right? Everything has to wrap up. Some things just wrapping up a little too conveniently, a little too unnaturally, and this one fell into that trap. Now, I'm not going to fault the author too much because it didn't happen that much, and let's just be real, I'll probably do the same thing. So another thing about Vows of Empire that was a little was that we met Gal's parents. Up until this point, Gal's parents have been like this kind of looming threat, this monstrosity on the other side of the galaxy. They are just a constant danger. But in this book, we have chats with them through their son. Like, it's private family time behind the scenes. Not only that, it was also their son and his, like, goofy friends, like, doing, like, hijinks behind their back and annoying them and embarrassing them. This plants a little seed of doubt as to how these two people managed to, like, stay in power in this backstabby, murderous political system. There's just, like, a tiny hint of incompetence, okay? Not quite as bad as the King and the Savior's Champion, but it was still a little Honestly, I think it's mostly because the author isn't totally messed up in the head, so she couldn't think of these things. So maybe that's a good thing. Good for her. Now, getting off of the negative. Gwen and Etienne. So, if you remember, Gwen and Etienne hit it off immediately. Like, they had a shared trauma, like a shared similar trauma. They were both orphans of very powerful people who then had to, like, live on their own on the streets, and they kind of, like, clawed their way up a little bit. So, they've always got each other. They've always been, kind of close, conspirators, And the two of them have really been going through it. Actually, all 3 of the main characters, Gal, Etienne, and Gwen have all been going through it. But even though Gal and Etienne are, like, in love with each other, Gal's always been kind of like the third wheel, the outsider on this little friend dynamic, which sucks for him, but that is how it's been going. So their relationship has been growing, Gwen and Etienne, and by this book, they have the closest relationship between major female and male characters that I've ever seen that was not romantic at all. They get married in this book. 100% platonic. And before you say, like, oh, of course it wasn't romantic. I mean, Etienne's gay. No, he's not. He's not gay. He's bi. He has had several girlfriends in the past. Gal was kind of jealous about it. But he is not gay. Gwen's a little bit of a mystery. They're kind of I think the author was kind of hinting that she was into girls. But we don't know. Possible. Either way, their interactions, life goals. It does make me a little sad that everyone else in the galaxy is gonna think that Gwen and Etienne had a terrible relationship, and Gwen is a backstabber, heartless person who didn't care about Etienne at all, because at the end of the book, she does kill him and throw his body out of an airlock. So, little sad. We as the reader know that that was planned, he's not actually dead, and it was all part of their little plot to make sure that Etienne and Gal could live together without all this, like, emperor crap over their heads. But still, I know that I am sad about the fake people, not knowing that the other fake people were still friends, and that Gal and Etienne are gonna go down in fake history as completely incompetent, but it is what I feel. So another thing I liked was that there was not drama. The second book ended with, like, this really emotionally charged moment between Etienne and Gal, and then Gal got kidnapped in a way that made it seem like after all that, oh, we're gonna be together, blah, 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 Gal was like, psych, see ya, and dipped. So, I was afraid that was going to be the entire book. And there was a little in the beginning. But then, like, immediately, things get explained to each other, like they talk. Actually, I think Wen tells Etienne first, but Gao and Etienne talk. It's sorted out, and they go right back to trying to figure out how they're going to be together. Amazing. I wish that would have happened in the second book I'm going to talk about today. We'll get to that later. So all this planning does actually dominate the book. There's definitely a feeling that Gao and Etienne both have kind of like backburnered the whole war that's still going on. That might be a turnoff for some readers. However, it does fit with the theme of the book because by the end of the book, they're out. They're leaving all that war and the aftermath and all that crap to other people and just living their lives. They're still planning on helping from the shadows as like vigilante boyfriends, but still, they're out of there. So the tone of the book was kind of hinting all along as to where the book was heading, which, if intentional, very nice. Okay, so now I'm going to sneak in a minor complaint here. If this was an adult book, the Wraiths would have stayed dead. Now, if you are watching this because you don't care about spoilers and have no idea what I'm talking about, at some point during the book, Gao is forced to publicly execute his friends by poisoning them at a banquet. It was a great scene. It was excellent. So he has screwed up royally. And he needs to blame it on someone because his parents are like gonna freaking... I don't know what they're gonna do. They were never gonna kill him, but I don't know. So during the banquet, he does a toast and he tells everyone there, like, oh, these are my friends from the academy. They're amazing. They did all this stuff. He says good things about all of them. But then he's like, let's drink a toast to them. And then they're all poisoned and they die. Right, like right there in the banquet. Even though you're in his head, it's still written like he's actually killing him and they have no idea what's happening. Except for the one character, Hanji, who grew up in this political atmosphere and like saw through it. And she knows that the wine she's gonna drink is gonna kill her. But she's drinking it anyway because she has to. She has no choice. She has to die. It would have been such an amazing scene if that was real. And at the time, it seemed real. Even though in the back of my head, I was like, maybe, maybe not. But it was still written like he was actually killing them and he was struggling not to show the emotion or weakness in that moment, even though he was killing his friends and watching them die. So it was super annoying that they showed up later in the book alive. Even though they have died and fallen dead onto the table and we see them dead and who knows who's carrying them away, they're not dead. It's very young adulty, which is okay because it's a young adult book, but it was very young adulty. Although, if this was an adult book, I would have had to flip past a teenage sex scene, so good trade-off. So now let's end this on a positive, okay? Positive ending. I really like that the author kept track of injuries people received in previous books. So many authors forget about injuries that happened in the same book they're writing. Watch me do that once. Watch me, not complaining about it. I'm gonna do it. But it's like, did you remember that this guy got stabbed? Like, he's doing some things that he would not be able to do. Not in this book. Etienne, in book 2, got shot in the gut and like almost died. And that injury still hurts him. I could tell that the author took the time to think through like all of his actions and if it would hurt, if he would still be able to do it. And even like psychologically, like when he was face to face with the woman who shot him or even mentioned her name, like it would give him anxiety, like, oh, this is the person that tried to kill me. So I appreciate that. As someone who is currently trying to plot a second book around an injury, a major injury, I appreciate that. So all in all, this book, my gay space teens, they are living happy and I love this story. It was the weakest in the trilogy, but that doesn't mean it was not excellent. Anyway, getting off of that book. Now I gotta pick up this book with the cat. Okay. Second book. Blood Traitor, Lynette Noni. This is the third and final book in The Prison Healer. Honestly, I wouldn't have picked up this book if my friend hadn't told me to. And she was like, I just read this book, you gotta read it too, we gotta talk about it. So, thanks to her. Okay. Now, before I dig into this book, okay, it's 3 stars, it's not terrible. But it was definitely the worst one out of the entire trilogy. Like, 100%. no doubt the worst one. I also gave the first book 3 stars, but that was mostly because there was a couple of tropes that kind of, I don't like. And there was some overly convenient plot things that happened. But otherwise, it was a better book than this one. The second book is actually the best book in this trilogy. I know I was on a stream in stream chat the other day saying that the first book was the best. But once I thought about it, I was like, oh no, the second book was actually better. Sorry for lying. Now, this third book had some issues. It definitely had some issues. And I feel bad saying this because in the author acknowledgements, she said that she was going through it. And while she was writing this book, she was considering quitting writing altogether. And I think it showed. So I feel bad. So I'm going to keep the criticisms short as possible, although there's a lot of them. So here we go. First up here, this book is entirely telling. It's all telling. Like, this is info dump after awkward info dump speech. Now, we know that she writes better than this. Okay, we do. Her writing in the other books is a lot better. She did have awkward dialogue here and there, but this was like every piece of dialogue I was looking at like. So just that alone, I could see that she was not at her best. She was definitely not at her best. That is the biggest, most obvious thing that you see right away. Now, my biggest criticism overall for the entire book is that this might be personal. Some people might not mind this. Okay, but I really cannot stand when they spend an entire book looking for something and then they find out at the end they've had it the entire time. Major spoilers. A solid 70-80% of this book is spent with them looking for these rings, and in the end, the rings don't do anything. This exact trope is called plot coupons, where you're finding things just to find the things in, like, advance. Definitely felt like that. They were looking for these rings to give Jaren his magic back, and also maybe give magic to some other people to, like, build up their defenses against other magic people. But the rings did not do that. The only thing they did was kill a person, a minor character, which we didn't care about at all. And they also gave Kiva enough time to make up with Jaren and to practice her magic. That was it. And then, like, after we find out that the rings were not the real thing, then we find out that the real thing that would give Jaren his magic back and do all the things they wanted was the freaking amulets that Jaren gives Kiva in book 1. Not only has she had it the entire book, she's had it since like the beginning of the series. And been using it. If I was in that universe and that actually happened, I would have been so pissed. Look at this. The rings on the freaking cover. That's how much like a big part of the story they are. And they do nothing. Useless. They are useless. I was supposed to be keeping this short and not being super mean. Okay, let me stop. Next complaint, alright? Evil people lived in an evil castle, in an evil kingdom with like a craggy wasteland, and they all wore like black and red, blood red clothes, and the king was like super gross and evil, and I was like, it's not a children's book, it's a young adult book, can we not? Next complaints, okay? Everyone gets a girlfriend, which could have been okay, except there were multiple people who were in the book who seemed to only be there so that someone could get a girlfriend. Even the 10-year-olds got a crush on another little girl. Next complaint, okay? We're going down the list. We're getting it out of the way. Okay, the drama that I mentioned earlier in the other book review. Now, the last book ends with Kiva's sister taking away Jaren's magic. And it's partially because Kiva screwed up, like, terribly. So, I understand why Jaren was so mad at her for so much of the book. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, she freaking took away something super cool from him and lied to him and all that crap. I'm okay with that. I'm even okay with the little kid not being too cool with her either. What was bad about this drama was Kiva herself. She was the problem. She absolutely refused to leave anyone alone. We're talking stage 3 clinger. Like, if you watch Grey's Anatomy, this was April, like, being massively annoying when Jackson was trying to divorce her. Like, that's the level of cling we're talking about here. Like, she was pushing everyone's buttons. She was touching the one thing that they did not want to talk about as a way to get back in their good graces, and it was the exact opposite thing she needed to be doing. What the hell was she doing? It was annoying me. It was annoying the characters, okay? There's one point where Jaren just snaps and says the most savage to her. And I was just like, you know what? You deserve that, you did. Yeah. I'm putting that interaction in a plus category. That was probably the most realistic dialogue in the whole book, was him losing his and yelling at her. Maybe the worst part of this whole drama is that it gets resolved by her getting high and then doing a tearful, like, info dump speech to Cresta, who she thinks she's alone in a room with, but Jared was also there because she was so high she didn't realize that he was still there. She had been trying to say all of that to him earlier, but, like, wussed out. So we didn't even get, like, her plucking up her courage to say it for real. It felt like it was cheating. Maybe if she had said it with a purpose to him, I would have been like, you know what, okay. You finally got together, you said your piece, and now you're gonna move past that. It did kind of feel like a fantasy daydream scenario that got put down onto paper. That scene definitely did have that. Like, it was fanficky a little bit, you know? But anyway, as disappointing as that was, we were past the drama, and that was a big relief, so whatever. Another complaint since the beginning of the entire series, Kiva and Jaren have been going on about how Zalandov, the prison, is terrible, needs to be reformed, people are dying, it's not supposed to be like that, we need to get the warden out of there, blah blah blah. But then at the end of this book, Kiva was totally okay. Well, not totally okay, but she just completely accepted her sister being sent there. She didn't fight back against that at all. Jared even drove her out there to go say goodbye to her as she walked through the the prison gates. And Kiva was just gonna, like, say goodbye and then walk away and go live her life. After all of that, after having grown up in that prison, knowing what happens there, spending so much time thinking, oh, we need to fix this prison, she's just like, peace. Jaren, to his credit, has actually, taken steps to fix the prison. And that's, like, a big surprise. Like, oh, I've gotten the warden thrown in jail, and we're gonna have a new warden, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of reforms here. He knew that going in. Kiva did not know that. She thought her sister was going to the crappy prison that kills people. And was fine. It was sad, but she was like, okay. She did it to herself. Let's go. What do you think, Kalani? You think that's some bull? Do you? Last complaint, I swear. Okay, I swear this. Kiva loses her magic, okay? I don't have a problem with that, okay? The problem was that it was made into, like, this big sacrifice because she loses her magic by jumping in the way of the knife that took away Jaren's magic before. The problem is, she doesn't care about her magic. Like, since the beginning of the book, like the first book, it's been nothing but a danger to her. She hasn't, liked it. She's been suppressing it and trying her best not to use it. It's been this big secret. It's been the thing that's keeping her apart from Jaren. Nothing good has come to her from this magic, okay? It's why her dad and her little brother got killed. It's killing her sister. It's killed her mother. This is not a sacrifice. It's only until this book right here that she started using the magic and, learning how to use it. And it was only because she wanted to save her sister and, help some other people. It wasn't for her. It wasn't like, oh, I love this ability. If she could have ditched that magic, if she could have just, given it to someone else, in the middle of the book, she would have done it. There was no loss. The most concerning part of that sacrifice was the actual knife wound itself. That's my last complaint, okay? The complaints are over. Now we're talking about good stuff. The bones of the story. They're there. It was probably a really good outline. There were a couple places they visited that I would have liked them to still visit. Although I really would have liked them to have visited for different reasons, because the freaking rings. For example, the night market, it's underground, so you have to climb down into it. It's under the city. That was cool. That market also partially relates to Kiva herself. Because she grew up in the prison, she knows how to navigate dangerous people and dangerous places. And it shows in the book. There's even one point where she has to kill a woman during this like death match, and it weighs on her because she's a healer. She doesn't like kill people. She's not about that. But it doesn't weigh her down. You know, it doesn't slow her down. Like, it's something that's in her head, but doesn't stop her because she knows how to keep on going through terrible situations because of where she came from, where she grew up. She grew up in the death prison, you know? So I'll give the author points for that. Also, there is an ace character. She's like hardly on screen at all. She's very minor. Honestly, I don't even remember who she is. I recognize the name. I don't know what she does. But she survives to the end. Yay. There's also like this silent character, this silent guy. Not like a silent, you know, quiet, mysterious type. More like a quiet, serious, maybe he's dangerous type off to the side. Like he's one of Jaren's spies, I think. At the end of the book, we find out that he's only like that because whenever he smiles, he looks super pretty and like all the girls won't stop bothering him. And I've always found that kind of character very amusing. I know a lot of people hate it, but I still find it funny. Another part I liked, like a very specific part, is Kiva and Jaren are in the mountains, but they take a pee break, you know, because they're in the wilderness. And I was kind of like, oh, the author is considering this. I like when an author considers that. Now, this is very whatever. What made this amazing is that after this, okay, every time Jaren like holds out his hand and like Kiva takes it, she's in her head thinking like, oh, there's this lingering, burning sensation like whenever he lets go of my hands. Now, I know it's supposed to be like this romantic-y kind of like, you know, lust attraction kind of thing. However, because I'm 5 years old, okay, I'm just in my head like, oh, it's because he didn't wash his hands after touching his junk. It was really a very unfortunately placed, and I loved it. Another good thing, way back in the second book, we find out that Jaren's father is dying of this disease. And in that book, I was like, you know, she could just heal him, right? And when I was talking to my friend, I was like, you know what? She's gonna come back, she's gonna heal the dad, and that's gonna be like a big bonding moment, blah, blah, blah. But no. Nope. They killed the dad. Not only did they kill the dad, they killed him where Jaren couldn't be with him, and also his kingdom had been taken over by the enemy. It was a bad situation for him to die in. I was not expecting that at all, even though it happened off screen. Now, what could have made this even better is if Kiva had acknowledged that she could have saved this man. Like, she was right there, she could have healed him. She would have, like, been killed immediately, so I know why she didn't do it. But still, she was there. What would have made it even better is if Jaren had realized that she could have saved his father's life. Now, if that is beyond her abilities, it was not made clear. But anyway, I still like that the author made that decision. More on the positives, okay? We're going hard on positives here. Cresta from the first book. How did she get me to like this woman who was like a freaking monster to her? Like, acts terrible person. She got me to like this woman. And like that she got together with like the coolest dude in the book, who was not Jaren, by the way. How did she do that? That was good. And it wasn't like unbelievable. It happens very naturally. The reason why Cresta was suddenly cool with Kiva made sense. It did. And then I'm gonna leave off one final positive, okay? She does not save her sister. Maybe you're asking, why is that a positive? She spent the whole book trying to learn this magic so she could save her sister from death magic, okay? But she ends up not being able to save her sister. She takes her magic away so she doesn't like die, but like she can't fix the sister, you know? I like that that's acknowledged, that the sister is just gone. They're never gonna make up. They're just gonna be two strangers forever. Like the sister is gonna be in prison probably for the rest of her life. And I kind of like that. Not as like that's a good thing, but I like that that's how the story went. So, like, it didn't go too fairy tale, you know? There were casualties along the way. I appreciate that. So basically, in the end, it was an average book. It was not terrible. I was able to read the entire thing. I didn't feel like skipping too much. There wasn't like other books where I'm like dying and I can't finish it. I like the cover, even though it has lies. I think the biggest issue I have is that I know this author does not write this bad, and I don't want to be holding it too much against her because apparently it was not in a good situation. But I know she could have wrote a better book. I do know this. Just because I read the other books. So that is a little disappointing, but it still is a tolerable end to the series. Anyway, I've now talked so much, I'm starting to lose my voice. So I'm going to end this here. Read both of these series. They're still worth the read, even though I kind of went off a little bit on the Blood Traitor. Blood Right Trilogy, they both have blood. I just realized this. Anyway, the Blood Right Trilogy, you know, Vows of Empire, definitely read that. It's excellent. I love it. Alright, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Hopefully next week. I should make a video next week. Peace. Uh-oh. My drink's a little soapy. So, in general, I've definitely sunk down in... I think I started, like, up here, and now I'm down here. It's because this cat is weighing me down. You're weighing me down. Jesus Christ. Okay. Drink my soap water again. Kiva and Jaren are in the mountains. Are you back? Come on. Another part I liked, okay? Kiva and Jaren. Are you gonna knock my camera over? How many times I gotta start this sentence? Another part I liked